Welcome back. We are in part 2 of our series where I am interviewing Bret Chapman, our digital discipleship pastor. If you want to know more about him, check out part 1. But right now, we're going to go into what it means to be in the digital space. And Bret, some people really question this ministry in the digital space, whether it's truly an effective or valid ministry. Have you encountered some common apprehensions towards this ministry that you're doing, or the fact that maybe this ministry isn't real in any way? Could you address that and share a bit about that?
Yeah. I think it's better to call it like a skepticism. It's an unsettlement. It is when we're operating in a space that very few people actually know enough about the space. And I
Mm,
would and I would include those that are in the space not being Christian. I don't think anyone really truly knows kind of the impact, which is I think even more of a call for Christians and theologians and faith-based groups to enter the space so that we can then help define it. We can then help have a voice that is gospel centered around how do we apply moral and ethics? How do we bring a conversation of the gospel? I'm reminded in the book of Acts where Paul shows up in Rome and there's all of these statues to all of these gods, but then
mm,
we're like, well, but what's this one to the unknown God? I think we have those everywhere in our culture and our society today, and we can say, well, it might be unknown to you, but I know. And I know that God loves you, and I know that there's something here. I think that within the skepticism is the traditional methodology of mission and evangelism doesn't really work. And I'm not suggesting that there aren't moments where God just shows up on the scene digitally and there's amazing things that happen, but in my experience, more often than not, it's time is the biggest difference. And that I can tell story after story after story where it's taken a year to have a spiritual conversation with somebody online. It's required consistency on my part to be present, to be the same positive, influential person, whether I'm playing a video game or sharing a note on social media, or I'm doing something in order to capture someone's sense of who I am. Because we really have an untrusting environment
we
that
do.
social media and people may not like the fact that I say this, but it's mostly fake.
Yeah.
Most of the time, people are putting a mask on to say, my life is wonderful, my life is amazing, when in fact, it really, unfortunately, is not. And so then how do we be consistent? How Jesus, every single space that he went, he was consistent across the entire 3.5 years of his mission. How can we then replicate that consistency where we truly and genuinely love everyone, regardless of the position that they hold at the time?
You brought up the fact that many people online, they show that everything is perfect. So I
Hmm.
suppose in your ministry, you have to be coming from a place of vulnerability and
Yeah.
in a place of realism and saying, this is my life. It's not perfect, and this is why I
Hmm.
love Jesus. So, and then you just present that to everybody that you encounter.
Hmm.
Because we do live in an increasingly digital world, and you spoke to that fact that, relationships take time,
Hmm.
especially in the digital space. So why is this work so important? How can it help us reach people that we wouldn't otherwise reach?
Oh, wow. I think that the biggest so when we're working with people that are far from God, the most impactful position for them is the anonymity. Is that they can be behind a pseudonym, behind, we call it in the gaming world, a gamer tag that's
Mm,
not usually their real name. And that the the application of anonymity has really provided space for people to be honest, even more honest in some cases than they would if they were face to face. But it doesn't preclude their isolation. It doesn't change the fact that the moment that their screen goes dark, the moment that their game is turned off, the moment that they turn off YouTube, they're alone and they're in isolation, and they're reminded of that fact, which is then where, if we are consistent in that application, then we have that opportunity. I shared just recently at church the idea that we had a single mom with her 12-year-old daughter who had been watching our church services online for a year,
Right.
and had an interaction with me on YouTube chat, and she just asked for prayer. And that as a result of that, she says, "What do I have to do to come to church?" And I was like, "Oh my goodness, nothing. Like, there's nothing that you need to do to come to church. Just come."
Right. Yeah.
And it was, I was so overjoyed with the position that most of the people in our church took, that she was here at church for the first time physically, in face to face, and so many people were encouraged and excited to connect to her, and that she is looking forward to staying in person with us now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a testament to why it matters.